Good morning. Good morning. Let's get these other two Facebook groups in here before it's officially time for our December 21st, 2021. A lot of twos and ones in there. And today's day. Here we go. Facebook, Tuesday. We're here. It is Broncos for Broncos for breakfast. Gosh, man, my days are so mixed up going on right now. I've been here, there, and everywhere driving across Iowa. I'll tell you, driving across Iowa, it's a little bit. I keep looking on the horizon, looking for some mountains or Mount Rainier or something because I've been out there. This is the first time leaving the state of Iowa since August 2020, and it's good to be back. Good to see people, but I'm already kind of missing Seattle. But I'm not missing you guys. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm good. I do like. It's one of the things I really like about Georgia is the topography. The green and the hills and stuff. But my first year in California, I'm driving. I don't even remember. Jefferson, I think, was the road, and it leads straight towards the highway, due east. And I was there about 9 months when I looked up, and I was like, "Hey, there's a mountain out there." The first time I'd seen it in the 9 months that I lived there, because I think it was winter and everything had been nice and cool and crisp and clear. The air quality's definitely improved, but it can still get pretty hazy in West LA.
I got to get myself to the Sierra Nevada mountains sometime in Central California. It looks beautiful there. Dying to do the John Muir Trail sometime in my life. That's a bucket list item. 211 miles and do that over a month. That'd be amazing. But we'll see. Let's see everybody coming in here. Actually, good morning, gents, from Ethan coming in, and Broncos Country from Ethan. Good to see you, Ethan. Good morning to you. EJ saying good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos Country. We got Luke Wright. Luke, how you doing, buddy? Good morning. Albert's in the house. Albert, I don't recognize Alberto Duran. So good morning to you, Alberto, with the Nike logo there. We got Little Rain Man. Good morning, everyone. Alberto saying, y'all think we're done for the season? Not yet. We have a chance. But it's the rope to walk is tight as it can be. So we'll see. Jesse Fraley, good morning, everyone. Please give me a holiday present and tell me Fangio's fate is sealed and he is gone. Oh, Jesse, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not. I hate bad news, but I hate people who lie to me to get around bad news even more. So I'm not going to do that to you. Dave Glassman coming in with the hearts. Good morning to you, Dave. Albert's in the house. Howdy. EJ, we need to beat the Raiders to have a chance at the playoffs, even if odds are slim. Exactly. DBA's in the house. Good morning to you. Fat Daddy Dollars. Hey, that's what they called me in high school. No, we will slide into the playoffs. Good morning to you, Fat Daddy.
Sure they did.
Yeah. God, only in my dreams. And Albert Knoppers, if Derek Carr would have been available, would you take him? I would. He is very underrated. We'll get to you in a second, Albert. Yes, Derek Carr is very good. But yeah, guys, welcome into Broncos for breakfast. It is Tuesday morning. Could we have Carolina with stars here?
Yeah.
Let's cut me off. Cut the mic.
Carolina Lens with stars coming in early, and that feels like a new name to me. So welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us on a crisp Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I recognize the name Carolina Lens. But it's a pretty awesome name. Carolina's a cool name. So let's get into it. Guys, you can follow Scott and myself on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy over there. I am at Nick Kendell MHH. You can also follow our main accounts at Huddle Up Pod as well as at Mile High Huddle. All of us on Twitter. Interact with us on Twitter. Ask us questions. Anything on here that you say, man, that's a great point, or man, you're a total idiot. Come at me. Maybe don't bother Scott as much, but you can come at me with the bad takes. Nick, remember how you said, maybe Shermer is not as bad as everyone says? Come at me. I'm about it. It's all good. HuddleUpPod.com to get your gear on. I didn't fly back with any of my Mile High Huddle gear. Luckily, I do have my Broncos Christmas stuff, but Scott does have his mug there. So make sure you're checking out the store there at HuddleUpPod.com. Not too late to get yourself a Christmas gift or for your favorite Bronco fan. Also, make sure you're joining us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Become a supporter today. And Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you guys have iTunes or any sort of podcast review where you listen to this after the fact, or you just have one where you're joining us live, but you listen to podcast, find Huddle Up Podcast on iTunes. Go there, leave us a 5-star rating, leave us a comment, and that can help us a lot. We would appreciate that greatly. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share to this channel, Mile High Huddle, as well as Scott's channel, youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. And I just want to keep pumping Scott up here. He just got to 1,000 subscribers. So the ball's really going to start rolling there over on Scott's channel. You don't want to miss anything over there. So make sure you're subscribing to Scott's channel, and we'll be there live tomorrow to talk a little bit of draft day and Falcons and just football in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Just got done. I watched a little bit of the second half again of the Broncos and Bengals before we pivot completely to next week.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to get another look at what Drew Lock was bringing to the offense, because if it hasn't been announced, I mean, he's going to be the starter this week. I would almost bet everything on. I mean, has it been announced, Nick?
I don't think it's been officially announced. I'm not saying that Teddy's out, but it would be malpractice, in my opinion, to put Teddy out there after his second head injury in 2 months. Like,
Yeah,
you can't do that.
and
Can't.
seeing the head injury, it was a little odd. You know, it wasn't quite like an impact. You know, it wasn't a helmet to helmet or something like that, or a knee to the head. It was almost like a forehead to the turf,
Yeah.
like it jammed his neck or something, and
Mhm.
it was a little strange. But either way, like it wasn't to me a typical bash concussion type of thing,
Yeah.
which makes me think he could come back a little earlier. But I don't want him to. You know, if
No.
it was a neck injury, even worse, that knocked him out, it was almost like he got, you know, a DDT, old Jake the Snake move, to the ground is how he went face first into the turf like that. So, um, but got to watch, you know, the good parts of Drew Lock a lot when he came in. It's like, all right, the ceiling on this kid, if he can play at this level, what are you going to get? And you know, it's obvious. You know, he can hit the boundaries, and he will make the throws that Teddy Bridgewater either can't or won't, including the touchdown pass to Tim Patrick. Not necessarily a great pass,
No.
but he gets it off with a rush in his face because he's tall and big. Back foot because he has enough strong an arm to throw it, and gets it to a one-on-one situation where he lets his receiver make a play.
Yeah.
Yes, please, that's great. But then, you know, the bad Drew Lock is then the reads of the defense, including the RPO, the read option. And he was doing something on every handoff, whether it was a bootleg or you know, a delay, you know, a Statue of Liberty type fake. And that was the one time he kept it, and really the one that he shouldn't have. So it was again, we saw a lot of the good and a lot of the bad in one microcosm of Drew Lock on the game on Sunday.
Yeah, and we got John Clay Evington coming in here saying, "Good morning, y'all. Good to see you." Carolina saying, "Thanks, guys. You are so nice. Just stick around. We'll show you. We're not that nice. But if it's good to see. We're in the holiday spirit. Even the Broncos lost. We also got Miguel coming in here saying, "Good morning, fellas," with the stars. Thank you so much, Miguel. Shout out to you. I know.
Yeah,
I feel like we
coffee
asked.
from Miguel. Appreciate it, Miguel.
Heck yeah. Luckily, I've been mooching on my mom's coffee this week, but that'll be a future investment in coffee from Miguel here. I know I feel like we ask the same questions all the time, but what players would you be willing to trade in a deal for Rodgers or Wilson? Me personally, Drew, Dalton, and Shelby. Drew Lock does not have much trade value. I'm just gonna say it point blank. Maybe if he plays really well down the stretch here, you can go from like a 6th-round pick to like a 4th-round pick for him. But I think you need to understand that teams are going to evaluate these guys on the broader sample size, and the broader sample size for Drew Lock has been left people wanting. So you're probably not going to get that much from him, and he also would only have 1 year left of control. Dalton Reisner maybe would have some value because he is a guard and he would only have 1 year left of control, but he's cheap on his rookie deal. So he maybe would have the value of maybe a 4th-round pick or something in there. But so it's not a lot, but maybe that's enough to get you over the edge where you want to hold on to some of that draft capital. Personally, I think he's probably more value on your team, hoping he takes a step forward next year, and then maybe you either re-sign him or get a comp pick, but we'll see. Shelby Harris is one where you signed him to a deal, and I think his contract is easy to get out of after 2022, but next season it probably leaves you a little bit too much dead cap to do that. And again, like what teams are going to be asking, not about those 3 guys. Teams are going to be asking about Jerry Jeudy. Teams are going to be asking about maybe Quinn Miners. Teams are going to be asking about Draymond Jones, the players like that, Noah Fant, like guys who have the high draft pedigree and have shown and are still on their rookie contract.
Yeah, I'm going to try and simplify this for you. You're not going to be able to put guys you don't want in a trade for a player you do.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys in there, you're like, okay, me personally, Drew Lock, you know, you might be able to get a 7th round for him, you know, in the contract than one. Unless, of course, and then I'm going to come back to this, you know, Fat Daddy Dollars comes in and says, Drew Lock wins the next 3 and we sneak into the playoffs in Hawk Street and upset someone in the 1st round. You know, that's not completely out of the question. And if that happens, now Drew Lock becomes a very good tradable asset, which is a bonus. Certainly it's a bonus. Teddy Bridgewater, even if he was playing great, was on a 1-year deal. There's no upside there. So now maybe Drew Lock plays great and you still don't want him. Somebody else will. You know, Teddy Bridgewater played himself into a $66 million contract on the basis of 5 good football games. And the Panthers lost their mind. People do a lot of stupid stuff when it comes to quarterbacks. It's going to cost you to get one of those guys. It's going to cost you stuff you don't want to give up. You know, it's going to cost you guys that you really it's going to be painful. whether it's a lot of draft capital and or a couple players that are really good in the Jerry Jeudy mold. Maybe Melvin Gordon's gone. Javonte Williams, he ain't going anywhere. But it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you a lot of what you don't want to give to get a player like that.
And for both of these quarterbacks too, I think something we need to talk about is that these players have the ability to kind of dictate where they're going to go. And maybe you don't want to be giving up players that are good and on their rookie contracts or whatever, because then that, like, let's say Aaron Rodgers is like, oh, wait a second, you're sending Patrick Surtain back to Green Bay for me? Like, part of the reason I want to go there is because you have Patrick Surtain, like, because he's a really good player and he's like one of the best young cornerbacks in football. So if you do that, maybe I'm not as interested. So it's probably going to be mostly built around maybe a fringe player on the defensive side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, but mostly draft picks. And that's
where could you afford to give up a really good player? Probably wide receiver.
It would have to be Jerry Jeudy.
You've got three really good wide receivers under pretty good contracts that make them movable in Sutton, Patrick, and Jeudy.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I would be looking if I was on the other side of that deal. So you're going to send me one of those guys, and you're going to send me a bunch of good draft picks.
Yeah, it's mostly going to be draft picks, and just some rules here, I guess, for you guys. You can only trade draft picks up to 3 years into the future. So like you can't send first round picks for 10 years for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. It would have to be 2022, 2023, 2024. The one caveat is, and this is such a weird thing, I think it was Ian Rappaport who mentioned it on a show that he was on. Once the first team is officially on the clock, you can start trading the 2025 picks. So once the draft is underway, teams are able to trade 4 years worth of draft picks instead of the 3. So maybe you see a trade happen during the draft because that you have more draft picks available to trade. Otherwise you wouldn't. So will be interesting. But I really hope that these quarterbacks, it's the age of quarterback empowerment, right? We've already seen in the NBA with LeBron James. Quarterbacks need to understand how much power they have as well, whether that be a seat at the table or dictating where they go. Hello, Trevor Lawrence. Are you listening? Like, what's going on down there in Jacksonville? Maybe you should get GTFO. Man, poor buddy.
Is that a video game?
GTFO.
It's a new racing game.
Yeah, you guys can have a good time with that one. Yes, no, it would be. I'm hoping that those Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, both teams in the NFC, not many AFC teams in a position to maybe go get that guy, can at least like dictate it for the Broncos. Limit the market means the Broncos have less competition and they can go give up some draft picks. So we'll see. We're going to have a lot of offseason to talk Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. So we'll move on from that. But thank you for the comment, Miguel, the super. And we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that because, gosh, it's fun to fantasize about that versus, hey, we're going to bring in Andy Dalton and draft Sam Howell in the first round. Like, that scares me. But is what it is. I'd rather have Rodgers or Wilson or Ryan or Kirk Cousins, honestly. But Peter Milton. So better news in the draft then. What do you mean about that, Peter?
It means you're up to number 13 is what it means. So right now, yeah, it is. It is much better news in the draft now. Right now on Tankathon, you're sitting with the 13th pick. So at 7-7, the difference between being 9 and being 25 is like a game and a half right now. So you're up to 13. Hey, okay, if we're not going to make the playoffs, I'd rather be the 7-7 team that's at 13 instead of the 7-10 team that's at 19. What is it actually? Like the 17 is 7-6-1. So the difference between 13 and there's one 7-7 team ahead of you in Miami, and guess what? They're winning. They're winning. Really, they're on a hot streak right now. They won 6 in a row. Minnesota is at 19 because they're in the playoffs. Baltimore is at 18. So the 23rd pick is one game ahead of you.
Yep,
8-6.
And there are 15 teams that have either 6, 7, or 8 wins. So talk about a cluster, there in the middle of the draft. The Broncos are in a good spot, I guess.
The 25th pick is the Bengals, who's one game ahead of you. So this one game was 12 spots.
Yep. It's rough. The Broncos do have one thing in their advantage when it comes to the draft. Sitting there at 7-7 is they have one of the lower strength of schedules in football. Now they are behind your Falcons, Scott, but 483 is going to put you. You're going to win the tiebreaker against most teams with that strength of schedule. Now the Miami Dolphins, they have 7-7. They actually have a worse strength of schedule. That's why they're picking above the Broncos. But most of these teams above the Broncos are sticking around 500. So we'll see. The Broncos do have an outside chance at a top 10 pick. Personally, where I'm sitting looking at this draft class right now, I don't think there's much of a difference between like the 9th pick and the 18th pick. because I don't think the top of this class, there's like 6 guys I think would be maybe a top 10 to 15 most years, but I don't think this is an amazing draft class.
So what's the best thing to do then?
Win and make yourself look good for a potential quarterback, or move down. But I think win games and make yourself like a Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and be like, you're winning with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. I could go undefeated with that roster, because those guys are trash. And who knows what Aaron Rodgers thinks.
Maybe I can pick up another 3rd rounder or another 2nd rounder if I go from 13 to 16.
Yeah,
something like that.
I'm about that. I'm also, forget it, but trading down, trade. I guess trade down years. Trade your 20 excess 20. Yes, trade out 2022 to 2023 capital. Kick that can down the road. If you can't get that quarterback this year, gear up for 2023. You have the excess capital to do it.
Who gets desperate that they want to jump up from the 2nd round to the 1st round to get Matt Corral or Malik Willis or somebody like that? The kid from UNC, Sam
Howell.
I want to call him Huff. I'm like, yeah, I'm not even that old. I didn't watch him play. Travis Tarbuck says, morning, fellas. So glad I'm able to catch you. So Travis had a shift change, so it's going to put him with us in the mornings.
Hey.
So welcome, Travis. We're certainly glad to have you, and we appreciate the stars, my friend. Michael Ranquillo comes in and says, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. And as always, Michael, thanks for the stars on all of the shows that you come in. I think you finished number 1 last night on the stars, too, and already off, getting off to a good start again today already. Peter Middleton, Broncos win this week. What do you think?
I mean, did you watch the Raiders last night? That is a team that is inept as hell. They're not very good. They still won because the Browns were decimated. Yeah. But that's not a very good Raiders team. So we'll see. I mean, the thing is, like, who shows up as Drew Lock? Because he's probably the starter, and Drew Lock, the last time they went to Las Vegas, threw 4 picks, and it was just horrible, and you cannot win games throwing 4 interceptions. I don't give a hoot if it's more fun.
You watched him in this last game, and he got off to such a good start. It's like, all right, if he can maintain that, but then as soon as he had the bad play, he fell off a cliff. So, the confidence is just paper thin on this kid right now, that if he can get off to a good start and put him in some good situations, some nice short, easy passes, some bootlegs, hit Noah Fant, your buddy from Iowa, and you're going to be in pretty good shape. So, again, it's to him, it's get him off to a good start, get his confidence going, because once he gets rattled, he was in trouble. I did watch some of the Chicago Bears last night, and it's like, wait, this is in Chicago, and I was just watching the calls that were going against them. I was like, are you joking me?
They really want those Giants to get another top pick for the NFL draft, right? That's what it seems like.
There is a play. They got like 3 first down conversions on penalties after the Bears had held, and then went down and scored a touchdown. I'm like, it's really, really hard to win games like that. Yeah. A couple of them were discipline stuff, silly stuff, but one of them was a play, pulling tackle. The corner comes up and submarines him to make the tackle on the running back that's right behind him. And they called him for going low on the offensive lineman's legs.
Yeah.
I'm like, he made the tackle, dude. Come on.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. We don't want to.
That was then that extended a drive. I was like, that's got to be revisited. That's pretty bad.
And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I know they still lost. But man, if you were watching that game last night and you can't see that Justin Fields has everything you want as a quarterback, I don't know, man. I think that Bears position, even though they don't have the draft capital, might be one that's pretty highly sought after, because if I was an offensive mind with what Fields is bringing to the table and starting to come together, I would be very interested. And he's going to be the same age as Mac Jones next year, so he's still pretty darn young. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And there's going to be a lot of turnover in the AFC North on the horizon. I mean, the Vikings are going to have a turnover. The Rodgers moving on from Green Bay at some point. So I don't know. I mean, I would be interested if I was a coach.
For 6 months, I said number 2 for him, and I haven't seen anything to change my mind just yet.
Yeah, don't tell that to some people in Broncos country. They have a personal vendetta for Justin Fields to lose because of what happened in the draft. But,
oh, that's okay. I mean, I'd be perfectly happy with Patrick Surtain for sure too. And,
yes.
and as Mile High Tree says, there's no difference between 9 and 18 in the draft. I think what you mean here is,
This is how teams look at it. There's everybody's in tiers, and you have your blue chippers at the top, and then you have your first round grades, and then you have your second round grades. And from talking with people in the league more in the know than I am, and talking with people like Dane Brugler or whatnot, DMing, sliding into Dane Brugler's DMs, talking to him, he's like, this is a class that has like some of the lowest amount of first round grades that I've seen in a while from people, and some of the lowest amount of blue chippers up at the top. You might see like off the top of my head. Obviously, you have Aiden Hutchinson and Thibodeau, who are at the top. Evan Neal is up there as well. I really like Ike McQuanu, but I need to see what his arm length looks like. Charles Cross is another one. Derek Stingley, Kyle Hamilton. After that, I don't think I'm missing anybody there. Those are I would say, the top guys. After that, it's just a plummeting of guys that you might have 10 or 12 first-round grades, and that's that whole range there from, let's say, 8 to 18. And it's really going to be more of a flavor preference, but those guys are going to be put on the same tier for a lot of teams' draft boards.
Hindsight is going to tell us that is a big difference between 9 and 18. But the foresight is going to say it's going to be tough to figure out which one is which, because all of the tools that you use to evaluate players like that, they're all coming out pretty similar. That's why their grades are all pretty similar.
And that's why I like tiered
grades. If you really like a guy, you like 2 or 3 guys, trading down. If you can move down a little bit, I think it's if you find yourself in that situation, move down and get a couple extra picks, because again, it isn't an inexact science, and you may get a Caden Stearns with the 5th round that you picked up by moving down in the 3rd round. Going from 40 to 48, you pick up an extra 5th. It turns out to be Caden Stearns. Awesome. Those are the kind of things you're looking to do. So Travis comes in and he says, appreciate the stars again. Travis says, most of the mock drafts I've seen has us taking quarterback Malik Willis. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's so hard to judge quarterbacks from here. It's obvious that Malik Willis has the combination of arm talent and athleticism that is like the starter kit for a young, blossoming franchise quarterback. And he is on a team that, like, the offensive system is very simplified, and that's partially because of the talent he has around him and the league he plays. So, like, what's the mental jump going to be for him as far as processing and running an offense in the NFL? He's also, I think, a little bit older compared to some draft picks. Not as old as Kenny Pickett, but I think he's going to be 23 next year, off the top of my head, which is a little bit older than you want your quarterback to be, maybe by 1 or 2 years. It's not enough to take him off the board, but maybe,
not so much as the skill guys, though. That's not as big a concern.
No, yeah, totally.
But I get it.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for reasons to pick one guy or the other when the margins are this small. If one guy's 2 years younger, it's like, okay, that seems like an obvious tiebreaker for me. So that's where those kind of things start to matter for me personally. But yeah, Malik Willis is fun. It's the pre-draft process is going to be huge for him. I really hope that with everything going on in the world right now, that we still have a Senior Bowl and everything, because Malik Willis going down there and seeing those guys throw side by side, it will be huge. That really helps separate the haves from the have-nots in those kind of situations. I mean, you've been down in the Senior Bowl. You can tell a guy when they're throwing in the reps side by side, like, that guy has an NFL arm. That guy is going to be lucky to be a backup.
Yeah, it's the first thing you watch is that 20-yard out. It's like, and down in Mobile in January, it gets windy as heck too.
Yeah.
So you can see the tools. Again, I'll say it for the 4,000th time. The problem with quarterback is it's the position that relies the least amount on the tools and the most on what you can't scout, which is what you can't pick up watching them do drills. It's just that's where the games and the film, and you really have to go back. I can watch Spencer Brown and see his combine numbers. I can watch him in all those drills at offensive line and say, yeah, that's he's a dude.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit harder with and it's really impossible with linebackers and running backs, because if you're not hitting or being hit, you don't know anything about them except, can they catch the ball? And that's about it. How do they move in open space? But you got to know if they can make tackles or break tackles.
100%.
Skylar comes in here and says, I'm all for firing the staff, but if we fire Fangio, are we worried Andrew Reid will pick him up? I saw a little bit of this, and I came up another dating analogy when the question was, my worry is if Drew Lock goes somewhere else and flourishes. Well, my worry is if we get rid of Fangio and he goes somewhere else and flourishes. That's almost like the high school boyfriend girlfriend thing. It's like, I don't like being with her, but I don't want to see her with anybody else either. I'm like, no, that's the wrong reason to hold on to somebody. It's the wrong reason to hold on to a coach. It's the wrong reason to hold on to a player. If it's not working out, dude, cut ties. And the first question you will ask yourself is, why did I wait so long? So no, Fangio will find another job in a hurry when he's
Mhm.
gone, and he will be a damn good defensive coordinator for somebody as he tries to rehabilitate his head coaching resume, if he even wants to. He's going to
I
make
mean,
enough money on his Broncos contract. He doesn't ever have to work again. Those are usually at least $3 million a year for 4 or 5 years. He's talking, $15 million. He's set.
yeah.
So he'll coach because he wants to, and he'll find a place where he can be very successful and be on a successful team. That's not a reason to keep him if you don't want him.
I think you're looking at the wrong team here. As far as AFC West, what makes sense? Steve Spagnuolo has been pretty good for Andy Reid, considering the lack of premium resources they've spent on the defensive side of the ball. And he's done a pretty good job year after year under Andy Reid, and those guys have a deep connection. It's a connection league, like I said. Who has Vic Fangio worked with? How about the guy over in Los Angeles with the Chargers, named Brandon Staley, who got his start and runs the same scheme as Vic Fangio? That defense for the Chargers, it's the first year implementing that scheme, and Ronaldo Hill is their defensive coordinator right now, and he's been fine. He's a young up-and-comer, but, like, if Vic Fangio becomes available and I'm Brandon Staley, I'm like, heck, I'm going to go get the Masters. That way I can do more of a CEO stuff and the teaching kind of stuff that I love to do, and keep having awesome press conferences, and let Vic just go be the defensive curmudgeon in the corner. And, hey, Vic, why wouldn't you want to go to Los Angeles, maybe rub it into Denver a little bit, and also, hey, you have one of the top 2 young quarterbacks in football. That's something that this team has dreadfully lacked. So I think the Chargers are the one that makes the most sense for Vic if he does end up moving on from Denver. So,
and Peter coming in again says, I still hope for a Broncos win. I'm already looking forward towards free agency and hopefully a better draft position. And that's the hope. We talk about this all the time. The hope is what fuels us as fans. And that's why free agency and draft and recruiting is so much fun. I hope this is going to be the guy that does it for us. And there's a lot of that in free agency and draft. And it's really hopeful when you've got a team, a couple different ways to look at this. When you've got a team like, grab your cup, the Falcons, with a zillion holes, the improvement is going to be easy because there's so many good holes. When you got a team like the Broncos, the areas of weakness there aren't many, so it should be fairly easy to plug. It's not easy always getting a quarterback, but you should be able to fill your biggest need a little easier because you can pour all those resources into that spot and hope that this is the guy that moves us to the next level. And it's fun. It's absolutely fun.
yeah.
Why we watch all this stuff. Why we watch it 12 months a year. Otherwise, we just, wave our flags and go to games and say, go Broncos.
Yeah, I am curious to see what the Broncos do in the draft. Obviously, need to see what happens in free agency and the quarterback position first, because that is the only question that really matters. I guess the ownership and the head coach matters too, but like on the field, it's pretty obvious. It's the quarterback's the only one that matters. And I hope that Peyton will not be hasty in that situation. It does sound like, again, I talk with a lot of people in Broncos media or some people in the Broncos front office or in the NFL in general, connections that you make when you go cover the combine and stuff, right? Hey, who are you? Okay, let's talk. But I am a little bit concerned talking with Andrew Mason that the Broncos might be aggressive in this draft if they don't get one of the veteran quarterbacks and trade up for a quarterback. That scares the bleep out of me because I don't really like this class that much. But if they love a guy, then I get it. They're working with more puzzle pieces than I will ever have. So you hope they get it right. But that kind of scares me a bit. We'll see. Miguel coming in here saying, let's say the Broncos
needs a Mac Jones guy would transform this team right now. As opposed to, you don't need Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers for this team to be from 7-7 to 10-4. Mac Jones would make that difference for this team.
Oh, man, I don't know if I agree with you because they're not asking him to do very much, and the team on the Patriots is better.
He's still doing more than Teddy Bridgewater, and he still protects the ball pretty well, and he's still pretty good under pressure.
Yeah, I think you flip Teddy Bridgewater and Mac Jones, the teams are pretty similar to what they are this season. Because how little they're asking Mac Jones to do, and when they have asked him to lean on him in the drop back pass game, it hasn't been that pretty. It kind of mimics their pass protection is much better as well. Gosh, Broncos pass protection has been frustrating for me, and I know it's all about the quarterback.
My overall point is I'm not terrified of a rookie quarterback coming in and playing worse.
I'm not terrified about that. I'm terrified about what that could mean for the long-term projection of this team.
Yeah.
I am
where he's okay, but now we owe him another shot. I'll go back to your point. So let's go get another one. If we get lucky and let's go Arizona Cardinals on this guy. Yeah, we took Malik Willis at 12, but we got a chance at Bryce Young at 1.
Mhm.
Okay, do
Yep.
it.
And we have let's thank you so much for the question, Miguel. Let's say Broncos get a QB, don't want a QB already. Have you one? Are you drafting OLDL? It totally depends on how the board falls, right? Like you want to see what they're like. If the top 3 offensive tackles in Charles Cross,
All right, I'm going to rephrase this because that's the easy answer. Okay,
best player.
it depends on who's there, and I want the better player. I get that. I'm
Yep.
going to rephrase this question for Miguel. What do you think's a bigger need, the offensive line or the defensive line?
Offensive line has the biggest question at the most valuable position at right tackle, where I think that can make the biggest impact. But you have a more across the line need at on the defensive line, if that makes sense. So like,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have multiple spots on the defensive line that are going to need some work compared to the offensive line. And looking at the Broncos' defensive grades from this last game, the Broncos had, God, this is insane.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
4 of their worst 5 graded players on the defensive line this last week, or on the defense this last week, were defensive players. Mike Purcell, 51.2. Deshaun Williams, 39.7. McTelvin Najim, 36.0. Shamar Stephen, 29.9. That's bad, folks. That is not good. And Shelby
Yeah,
Harris
Shelby
only
Harris
has,
is the only one that graded fair at 63.5, and everybody else was really bad.
yeah.
Get back down to it again, and I think Miguel, you said earlier the Browns smacked us around earlier. This team isn't Jekyll and Hyde. They're very, very predictable. If you're physical in the trenches, you've got a really good chance of beating the Broncos.
Yeah, and the one thing that's unfortunate about the offensive and defensive line is that typically, even first round picks, unless they're a top 10 type of player, which I guess there are 3 offensive tackles that maybe fit that mold. I'm not sure if there are any true defensive linemen that fit that mold, but typically it's a 2 to 3 year projection kind of position where you're not drafting those guys at all for their first year impact. You're drafting them for what they can be 2024. And that coincides nicely with Draymond Jones getting paid, with Shelby Harris probably moving on. But again, you're not going to get that instant impact, which is a little bit rough, but you always have to feed the fire. You always have to have that fire burning in the trenches. You have to continually invest in them. Otherwise, you're going to look like what Minnesota looks like on the defensive line this year, or maybe even Miami on the offensive line, because they're relying on a bunch of rookies immediately. And guess what? Those guys don't always work out. And typically they take 2 to 3 years before they really start to take a hold. And that's one thing too, like Quinn Miners. It's unfortunate that he had to play this year, and we really love the splash plays, but his pass protection is a year away, and it was always going to be a year away. And hopefully he's better next year in that regard. But it's been rough so far this season in pass pros, and hopefully it'll get better.
Yeah, I was
DWI
looking at
guys,
pass blocking. Melvin Gordon failed. Javonte Williams failed. Albert Kendall. Quinn Miners was a 68.9 in pass blocking.
yeah,
Not too bad. Nick looks like he may have frozen up a little bit on me, so I'm going to carry
I can
this for
hear
a
you.
second. Unless it was me.
It was me.
It says, but Ethan coming in, DWI guys, with a big super. Appreciate you as always. So I don't feel like waiting another 2 years on a QB in the draft who may not pan out. I say get the sure thing in Wilson or Rodgers and do what needs to be done. That's easily the best route. If you can get either one of those 2 guys, you do it. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that's a great big if. It takes 3 to tango on that. Not just 2, but 3. You got to find the right deal from both sides of the Broncos, Seahawks, Packers, and you got to convince Rodgers and or Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of convincing that needs done. Now, if they're going to be moved, it means it's, mathematically speaking, I always think of the Final Four, the 64 team tournaments. Like mathematically speaking, winning all those games is almost impossible. But someone has to do it. Someone has to be the team that wins all those games. Yep. But, winning 6 games in a row is hard. It's really hard, but someone has to do it. So if these guys are going to move, it's going to happen. But can you be the team? Can you be the one of those, 10, 15 teams that can put together the package, that can convince those guys to come? It's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. I agree with you 100%. This is without a doubt the way you want to go. Best case, you got one of those 2 guys under center next year. Best case, no question.
Yeah, and the cost, whatever it is, draft cap wise, it's fine. And we have Jason Peters saying Nick needs to call out Shelby every week. That's the only way we see Harris produce. Shelby Harris has been fine. He's not really a difference maker, but you can do worse with him. The issue is when your defensive line is decimated and you don't have any edge rushers, and you need Shelby to be your best guy. That's maybe an unfair ask for him. He's a fine player, but he's not a difference maker on that line. and you want some difference makers. We got Ken Booker coming in and saying, "Good morning, fellas. We should draft a quarterback, even though we've never drafted a legit quarterback in the team's history." I would say Jay Cutler was a legitimate quarterback. Maybe he was a little bit of a doofus and didn't really have his heart in the right place, but he was a franchise quarterback for a number of years. So I think that I would push back a little bit. I know that, if you ask a Broncos fan, they would probably be biased against Cutler in that regard, but he made money in the league and he was good.
There's a lot to like there with Jay Cutler. I thought he was overrated, but that's because I thought people rated him, top 5 type of quarterback. And for me, that's always one of my first questions. Well, do you think this guy's overrated? It's like, well, what do you think he's rated? Because that's a relevant statement. When Jimmy Clausen was coming out, his quarterback coach called him the LeBron James of high school football. I'm like, see, that's overrated. Did he play as a number 1 guy? Yeah, he did. He had a great career at Notre Dame. He lived up to that 5-star status. So what do you think he's rated? For me, I thought Jay Cutler was a little overhyped, but definitely. So I thought of this, Ken, and appreciate you being here this morning. Last night when this came up a little bit about not drafting quarterback, and it's a little bit like the Atlanta Hawks of the 80s. The Atlanta Hawks of the 80s were always a 50-win team, second round of the playoff and out, and always drafting in the 15 to 20 range. They could never get that guy. So when you're the Denver Broncos, you're a pretty good franchise. You're not the Detroit Lions, the Cleveland Browns, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are drafting in the top 10 every 3 years. So the odds of that quarterback being available when you're drafting in a spot to get that franchise quarterback, the odds of that happening are pretty low. So I'd have to really do some Dove Valley deep diving into the draft history to say, okay, how many times did you pass on an obvious guy? So, and I think, in the recent history, the one that I think would rankle most people might be when Bradley Chubb was taken.
Yeah. Yep. And we got Jeremy saying, weird that Nick defends Cutler but dislikes Drew. Very similar talent, but different hearts. I think you got to go back and watch Jay Cutler versus Drew Lock side by side, because Jay Cutler had a tiers difference arm talent than Cutler. Lock has a good arm. Cutler's arm was insane. He had throws out there that you didn't see. Also, Cutler's mechanics, and because of that, his ball placement was night and day different than Drew Lock. We were talking before the show, Scott and I. Believe it or not, the lowest graded player on the Broncos offense this last week, according to Pro Football Focus, was Drew Lock, something like a 31. And it was like it did kind of fall apart when the fumble happened. But the thing about Drew Lock is it's not just the bad decisions, which he does have, and gosh, it's it's always frustrating because I'm cheering for him because when it's good, it's beautiful, because he has the tools and the athleticism. But it's the poor decision making coupled with the lower body mechanics that are still, they're what they were his junior year of Missouri. It's driving me insane because he acts like everything has to be a fadeaway with a muddy pocket in his base, even when the pass protection is fine, and that leads to ball placement issues, which just simply do not need to happen. So that I think that. Cutler is if you're going to grade these guys, maybe on the Pokemon scale, maybe Cutler is the Charmander, or excuse me, sorry, I have to get this in there. Drew Lock is maybe the Charmander, where Jay Cutler is the Charizard. He's farther down the evolutionary tree, maybe somewhere in line, similar, but Cutler was better.
All right, how many of you get the reference of the Pokemon scale? Because you might have been talking about bleeps and blockos, for all I know, on the Pokemon scale.
There's an age
I
difference
always
there.
call Jay Cutler the dumbest smart guy I ever scouted.
Yeah.
Worlds of talent, just loads of talent. A poor man's Brett Favre. Brett Favre and John Elway are my tiers for this is basically as strong as an arm can get. Jay Cutler wasn't there, but he was close. Matt Stafford is close. Those are the guys that have when I grade arm talent in my mind when I'm looking at quarterbacks, that's the benchmark. Brett Favre and John Elway.
Here's one for you too. Jay Cutler arm talent, AP calculus. Drew Lock arm talent, maybe pre-calc, maybe geometry. There's different grades here.
There's no math.
Oh man, we really leaned into the math on that one.
So quarterback Carson Strong from Nevada. Now I watched a little bit. No, I watched the Utah kid. I haven't watched Carson Strong from Nevada yet. So, but Michael asked about him, and what have you seen so far?
Thoughts on Carson Strong, Nevada? He's got the arm talent down the field. He's got feathery vertical touch, which is something that you want in this offense to unlock these guys. He is not an athlete as far as scrambling ability. He is definitely more of the the Matt Ryan mold when it comes to mobility, where you're going to have a run game, and you're going to have solid pass protection because he's not going to be able to create out of structure that often. Kind of operate. I mean, really, the athleticism there, I would say, mimics a lot of his game. Really mimics Jared Goff, because if it's clean for him and it's perfect, he has the arm, a really good arm. I mean, Goff went number 1 overall, but 10 years ago now, to hit the downfield throws. The big hang up for me is that knee. There's a lot of concern about the knees. I know that Jim Nagy, director of the Senior Bowl, just said like, "Oh man, talk to somebody. Carson's knee's gonna be fine." Well, Nagy, I'm gonna wait to hear it from the combine people at the doing the medicals there, because of course the guy who's bringing in the quarterback to his bowl game is gonna say, "Hey, it's gonna be fine. Come on down to Mobile." So we'll see. But
The skeptic in me always asks, whenever I hear anybody say anything, it's like, what does this person have to gain?
yes,
What does this person have to gain by this?
yes,
And Richie
but I like
Rich
him.
coming in and say, Nick is a math guy. I suspect he did very well in advanced calculus. I actually tutored calculus in college.
There you go.
I'm a math guy too. It's one of the reasons why Nick and I get along so well. Is the I used to call it robotically logical minds.
Yep. Yeah, I really enjoyed. I think it's something that everybody should take in high school. Our high school curriculum should have logic courses. I liberal arts school, little small liberal arts school in the Midwest, so I had a very wide education, vertically or horizontally integrated, right? But took some philosophy courses, and I will say the logic course really stuck with me. I also took
Well,
the
it's nice to it's now we're going way down the rabbit hole on a Tuesday morning before Christmas. It's good to be introduced to everything. Like, why do I have to do this, Dad? It's nice for you to get a taste of it, see what sticks. If you don't like it, try and get an A in it and forget about it. That's fine with me.
Yep, same thing with different cultures and walks of life, right? Like you want to be as versatile as possible, because if everybody's thinking the exact same way, you're gonna probably be missing an obvious solution. You got to have
You
people
can work
thinking
in the
about
media.
exactly, Scott. Exactly. But yeah, no, I fully do believe that you want to have integration and diversity and different thought processes. But yeah, Carson Strong. I see Jared Goff. Jared Goff is fine. I mean, he went to the gosh darn Super Bowl, but he's always going to be limited in that way. Jared Goff, though, on a rookie contract, you have my interest. I think that's the big thing here, and that's the truth with all these young rookie quarterbacks. They're going to be on rookie contracts, so you give yourself a 5-year window.
Yeah, and again, since they fixed the draft around 2009, I think it doesn't kill your team to miss on a quarterback. It used to be, it was just absolutely insane. The highest paid player in the NFL was the first quarterback taken in the draft.
Sam Bradford.
I mean, that's insane. That's just insane. Yeah. And the thing is the veterans, excuse me, fought for it, which I didn't get. You know, going back to the grades here, the top 3 highest graded guys kind of fit what we thought when we watched the game. Look at the stats and everything. It's 3 linebackers: Jonas Griffith, Baron Browning, and Jonathan Cooper. And going back to the offensive line or defensive line question, way flashback. That's how my mind works. The ADD, what are you talking about? Again, not to cop out on this, but I think right tackle is a big need. I think right tackle would help right guard. I think it would help the tight end position. And I think edge is a huge need for this team. So for me, I think those are about which would you rather have? I would want edge first over the other line positions. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't want necessarily Jonathan Cooper and Malik Reed and Bradley Chubb as my 3 edge guys. If I've got a first round talent that I can bring in there. And then if the right tackle is available, the right, no pun intended, the right tackle is available, I'd go that way. So for me, best player available of those 2 spots is what I'm looking at. So appreciate the stars as always, Miguel.
Yeah. And team building is my favorite. I think that's why Scott and I vibe so much. You're talking about this kind of stuff. You talked about edge rusher being number 1. I'd be fine in 2022 with the combination of Reed, Cooper, and Chubb, assuming they're all healthy. But the issue is 2 of those guys are free agents after 2022.
Well, and one you can't count on to play 17 games. I mean,
yeah.
Not that you can anybody, but yeah. Bradley Chubb hasn't proven to be reliable to play out there. He's battled injuries. So I go in there with a big question mark next to his name. If I'm putting my draft board together and marking, I'll say, okay, I'm good at wide receiver. I'm good at tight end. Quarterback is a big red circle. And then I probably put an orange question mark next to Bradley Chubb's name.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you at all, but the bigger point I was getting at here for the the logic here is you don't look at draft picks for the impending season, what need you have. You need to look multiple years in the future because you have you shouldn't. That I think that really limits you and the potential talent in front of you in the board. So if you go in like I just have to walk away with this need in 2022,
No.
injuries
What
are
I mean though is if your biggest need fits best player available, that's the best way to mesh
yeah.
things. So
Yes.
if I need a cornerback, and Pat Surtain is there, I can plug and play him and win with him.
Yes.
That's what I mean by that. I don't
Yeah.
mean, okay, my biggest need is at quarterback. I'm taking a quarterback with my first round pick. No. That's not what I mean at all.
It's a very myopic view. Word
Yeah.
of the day, myopic. That's
It's
what I like to use it in the
it's
draft.
try to fit them together best you can. And if it's close, go with the bigger need. If it's not close, go with the best player. Again, going back to this 9 to 18 range, if all my grades are pretty similar and I've got 5 wide receivers and a right tackle is all the same grade, when I'm picking at 15 and I'm the Denver Broncos, I'm taking the right tackle, even if I had one of the wide receivers just slightly ahead of those guys, because it's a bigger need for me.
Yep. But I think it's Jason Licht, who is the general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's even said, like, Tampa Bay Buccaneers build their board based on the team's needs and what they project these players to be 2 years into the future.
Sure.
And that's the way that's how you have to play the draft. It's an investment, not an instant purchase. You're not walking out there. It's like you're planting seeds, I guess is the way to go. And that's what you want to do. And that's how the board should look. You talk about edge rusher, you talk about offensive tackle. I will add one more position in there that I think is somewhat of a sneaky need for the Broncos, just how this team sets up. It's defensive back. I know that the Broncos have invested a lot in the defensive back, but looking at the snap counts for this team, the Broncos had 53 defensive snaps last week, and 2 of their top 5 snap getters are free agents next year. Kareem Jackson, Bryce Callahan, and also you're going to be losing Kyle Fuller. That 5th defensive back spot is, especially the nickelback spot, is a complete unknown right now. You don't have anybody there. Bryce Callahan's gone, Fuller's gone, Kareem Jackson, all free agents. So if there is a safety hybrid that can come down and play the slot, or another cornerback that can do some inside-outside stuff, especially with Ronald Darby likely on the last year of his deal next year, Ronald Darby's injury history, I would say that defensive back is actually pretty high up there as well. And if that fits,
you can never have enough. And then the guys you thought you had, Bryce Callahan, Ojemudia, they go down, and all of a sudden, wait, we're short. We play with 5 defensive backs as important as offensive line, and they're harder to come by. The really good ones, especially the cornerbacks versus interior offensive linemen. So it's always a need. If there's a guy there that I don't have any problem. I used to say I'm never going to complain if you address the line of scrimmage, but I almost feel that way. I'm coming around on your line of thinking there in modern football on the defensive backs too. And Mr. Williams coming in here, Leroy help me out with that one. Says I read an article this morning saying Fangio is the reason why Pat came to Denver. He was getting asked during the 4-game losing streak about his future, Fangio's future, and he said, Vic Fangio is part of the reason I came to Denver. Here's what I heard. Blah, 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 blah. Doesn't mean anything. So don't worry about that. If Peyton doesn't think, if he thinks he can upgrade that position in the offseason, he will.
Yeah. Yep, totally. Luckily for the Broncos, maybe they see something here where maybe you don't have to hire Dan Quinn as your head coach. Now, this is just me putting on the tinfoil hat here for a second, but it's not just Dan Quinn who has a connection with Russell Wilson. It's also Darrell Bevell and Marty Schottenheimer, who were likely going to be on the move from Jacksonville now that Urban Meyer is out. So those 2 guys are going to be available. Maybe it's the combination of one of those 2 guys or both those guys coming in here to Denver and being like, hey, Russell, you had some of your best years with these guys, and you know their offense, you know what they want to run, and you have familiarity because it's a familiarity league. It's a connections league. Maybe you want to come in here now. So I think that's a possibility if you're trying to woo Russell Wilson with coaching staff, with guys he knows, while also keeping Vic Fangio in here. And there is something to be said about Vic Fangio's defense. It's been incredible this season. It's the flavor of the NFL right now. Everybody's trying to copy what Vic does. I mean, everybody has been copying what Vic does as far as the pre-snap 2 high looks and then using their safeties to spin into cover 1 or cover 2 or cover 6 or whatever match quarters. And that's really just across the league. I don't know if you watched that video that I sent you, Scott.
I haven't. I will.
Okay. It's a really good video.
I will.
But it's very X's and O's heavy. If you guys check it out, it's Ben Solak on The Ringer. I've posted a couple of times on Twitter, but I could see them bringing back Fangio for that reason, but they have to finish, I think, above 500. I think you need to see them win 2 of these next 3 games, for even that to be a conversation. And that's going to be not a guarantee because you're injured. Who knows what you're going to get from Drew Lock next week with the Raiders, even though the Raiders are bad. And maybe that's enough. If you finish 8-9, that might be enough to get him out of there.
Antonio Jones is an interesting question for you. Going back to the draft, would you have taken Slater or Surtain still?
Going back to the draft, I would take in Surtain. This is a process over results discussion for me. And that draft pick is such a huge investment that if there are big red flags, I'm probably still going to take you off my board, even if it doesn't work out the best way. So the stuff for me, from where I sit, because I couldn't interview the guy or talk with his family, coaches, his middle school principal, you'd be amazed how far back these scouts go trying to get the character profiles on these guys. But like Micah Parsons on the board, he's probably one of the best defensive players in football. For me, where I sit, the stuff that he did that was not ever pressed, but I mean, Penn State, come on, guys. That's enough for me to not have him on my board, just because you have if you can't not bust on that pick, and that could kill you. And the stuff with his character and whatnot scared the bleep out of me. But purely talent-wise, probably Parsons is the one you're looking at. But between Surtain and Slater, I'm taking Surtain. Slater's been great.
I'm with Surtain too.
Yeah,
I am. I think the serviceable offensive tackle, someone that you can get that you can win with, is easier to find in free agency, in the draft, than it is to find a Pro Bowl, a guy that could be a Pro Bowl level corner. I think the drop off between a Pro Bowl level corner and a serviceable corner is much steeper in your ability to win games than a Pro Bowl level right tackle versus a serviceable right tackle. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
And Slater's been incredible. It's not, there's some talk about him being second team all pro this season. He's not as good as Tristan Wirfs, but that's beside the point. The one for me that is has me questioning, maybe this would have been the better move in hindsight is, the Bears offered their 2022 first round pick and a trade up for Justin Fields. And the Broncos said, I'm going to take Surtain. And imagine you have two first round picks, 2 second round picks, 2 third round picks, and you're trying to go get one of Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers this season. You would have a massive leg up than what you have right now. Even though you have a seat at the table because you have 5 top.
That would have been a pretty steep drop, though. Where was the Bears' original pick? That puts you in the Odafe Owe range, though, wouldn't it?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. I would have taken Owe at 20 because he's been one of the best edge rushers in football, and he's just scratching the surface of what he can do athletically. Also, again, Scott watched the video talking about how edge rushers and the styles have changed. But Owe would have been perfect for that because he has the length and the ability to play half man and while playing contain on the edge. It's how you have to beat Patrick Mahomes these days. And getting that paired with the first round pick, man, who cares about hindsight? Man,
if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're going to keep making them. Well, that's why we review the games. That's why we try to get better as scouts. I review back and say and grade myself. What did I think at the time? How could I have done better? Because when you ask me the question, what do you think about this guy coming up in the draft? All that experience helps. Yeah. So that's part of the reason why we do this. Nicholas coming in. Nicholas, I don't recognize your name in here. So appreciate you joining our show. Welcome. So why can't we get the ball to Jerry Jeudy? Give the man the ball and let him go off. At the very least, you're putting him in motion for 45 jet sweeps a game. Hand it to him once.
Yeah. I think that this offense really misses KJ Hamler. There's a lot of usage with Jerry Jeudy and taking the top off and stretching things horizontally or vertically that Hamler would do great at, that they're now using Jeudy for. And that's not Judy's game. They don't really have a explosive boundary guy right now that can create those create the space and also really press you from the slot, like Hamler does. So that's a bummer for me. Give Jeudy the ball. I hope Jeudy gets his butt reamed out this week because there was a couple plays where there were short passes to Tim Patrick or Cortland Sutton where his effort in blocking was pitiful. And I get that he's not getting the ball, so maybe he's not dialed out, but buddy, you're playing a professional. You're a professional. You're playing a football game. And there was a few, again, the block attempts. It's like this team, you have to contribute in that way. If you're going to win and if you're going to see the ball, you have to go out there and do the dirty work to earn the reps. You can't just come in and be, I'm a first round pick. No, you are a 7th round pick. As far as I'm concerned, as soon as you get on this team, go out there and contribute. So they will hopefully get Jeudy the ball more this week. but we'll see. And it's kind of funny to me. Everybody, oh, why can't they get Sutton involved? Sutton has like 8 targets in this game, and now Judy can't get a catch, although I think he had
Well, now he
4
can get Judy
targets.
ball. There's only one
Yeah.
ball.
Yep.
I've said that all year. It's always there's always a narrative after every game of who didn't get involved. Well, when we start talking about all the players, Okawebanam, Fant, Judy, Sutton, Patrick, Gordon, well, there's 7. There's only so many plays.
And the other thing
Jason,
about
welcome
Judy,
to the show. Good morning. It says, why does our O-line look like they progress and then regress under Mike Munchak? Has to do more with the guys that you're lining up against. Plain and simple. The offensive line is actually fairly steady. I was thinking about this getting ready for the show. The old child of the 80s, the blood sport line, when Frank Dukes tells him to hit Chung Lee in the gut, he's weak in the gut. You got a gut on the team. He's not weak, but this team on the offensive line, they're a little soft. They're a little soft. And when someone comes after them and bullies them in the trenches, they've beaten them. Yeah. We can go the whole way through the schedule. Eagles, Browns, Steelers, Ravens, Bengals. There's 5-year losses right there off the top of my head. One thing in common, they're beating you in the trenches. So for me, it has to do more with who you're lining up against than the offensive line progressing or regressing on its own.
And you are playing 3 guys on the interior that are on the rookie contract. I think that's important, and a lot of these guys haven't played together. Cushenberry has been up and down. I'm fine giving Cushenberry another year if they want to go that way, just because he is so cheap. And I would say that even though he is probably a below-average starter at the center position, it's the offensive line is more of a collective than a singular guy. So I think that you can go relatively cheaper there, invest there. You do need to invest in a developmental guy who can play guard and center. Just for the way the contracts are setting up with Dalton Reisner likely, potentially on the move after next season. But the interior offensive line has been erratic in pass protection. That's another reason. Why aren't you getting the passing game involved? You're protecting Teddy Bridgewater in the vertical pass game and volume pass game as much as you are protecting the offensive line, because talk about a dichotomy. The run blocking versus the pass protection is night and day right now. It's been rough. And, oh, man, Jeremy's coming out here. He's trying to hurt my feelings. Bloodsport is better than Pokemon. I went as Ash I don't want to date anybody in here, but back in 1998, I was a kindergartner, went as Ash for, I think it was first grade, but I went as Ash for Halloween, the little Z's and the hat and everything. I was a crazy person playing those first Pokemon video games.
My son collected the cards, but he didn't do the video games and stuff. He's in there playing a retro Grand Theft Auto game on his break. So we're teaching him right. One of the cool things about living in LA was you get to run into those people all the time, not the Pokemon. But the Jackson / the Ogre lived in my complex, and it was I got to say hello to him passing by one time. So it was fun. So yeah, child of the 80s, getting to meet the Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds was pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. So I guess we got to talk a little bit of the Broncos now in last place in the AFC West, because that's what I titled the episode. And you guys just kind of dictated the conversation. And that's what makes these shows so fun, is we don't know exactly which way we're going to go. The Broncos do now sit in last place, though, in the AFC West. That will likely not be the case. It'll come down to this next game. Broncos and Raiders are tied right now. The Raiders own the head-to-head. That's why the Broncos are last place with the Raiders in third place. But that head-to-head goes away, and it'll be the actual divisional record if it comes down to it comes down to the Raiders and the Broncos. The Broncos will have that tiebreaker by beating the Raiders because they've already beaten the Chargers once, and the only AFC West win the Raiders have is against the Broncos so far. So if the Broncos win this week, they have a chance to not finish last place in the AFC West in back-to-back seasons. Maybe you're pulling for the last place in the AFC West because you want that last place schedule in 2022. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to cheer for because I hate gatekeeping fans.
But when you start getting into divisional games, you want to win. You want to win,
especially against
those are the people you have to live with a lot more often. Wasn't quite the same in the past when the geography was totally screwed up. When the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals are in the East, and the Atlanta Falcons are in the West. Seattle Seahawks, those weren't exactly local rivalries for us, 3,000 miles away. But, you guys close enough around, some Chiefs fans. Vegas is getting closer. The Raiders are moving closer. What's next? They're gonna come over. They're gonna be the Colorado Springs Raiders.
Grand Junction.
But you want to win. You definitely want to win on that, especially The one that I'm looking at is 1, 2, 3, 4. When you look at the top of the draft, it's like your Jacksonville, Detroit, Houston, and the Jets at two wins and 3 wins each. You're like, no more. I don't want to win again, please. So, but Detroit may come in and beat the Falcons, who are 0-5 at home, and Detroit's won 2 out of 3. So they could use some momentum too. But you want to win. You want to beat your division rivals. I don't care what else is going on.
Yeah, nope, I agree with you, especially the Raiders. Rough. Hate those guys. And the Broncos haven't beaten them in too long. I think they're on a losing streak against the Raiders right now. And Travis coming in and saying, "You're making me feel old, Nick. I was 22 in 1998. Sorry.
Travis and I are about the same age. I'm older.
Well, that's one of my first memories. 1998 was I was a big St. Louis Cardinal fan, and it was the home run chase. Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa. Those were good years. Also, obviously, the Broncos were winning Super Bowls in there. 1998 was a good year for me as a young fledgling sports fan. Michael coming in here saying, "A great show today on the Broncos for breakfast with Nick and Scott. See you later tonight, Broncos country, during building the Broncos. Go Broncos."
Yeah,
a lot of Broncos in there, Michael.
Merry Christmas to you, Michael, in Tucson. Certainly appreciate you.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. Well, guys, we got to get on out of here. Unless, Scott, you have any parting words before I do the sign off here?
Yeah, real quick. I think Richie's and they're having a conversation about about no helmets. And I've actually said it'll never, ever, ever happen. But you want to take concussions out of the game, remove the helmets. It's not necessarily a bad idea. You look at rugby and stuff. These guys use their heads as a weapon when they've got helmets on. I kind of liken it to MMA versus boxing. Okay. I'm more likely to break my nose and get a black eye and get my teeth knocked out, but I'm probably not going to get the concussions like I am if we weren't playing helmets. And MMA is very similar. I'm more likely to get beat up a little bit, to break an arm or do something like that. But in boxing, they're killing guys because I'm going to concuss you. Then we're going to count to 8. And if you can get up, we're going to do it again. That's how I feel about the helmet versus no helmet rule. To me is like boxing versus MMA. You're more likely to get banged up a little bit, but you're probably not going to sustain the long-term damage. It'll never happen. Never, ever. But you're not the first person to think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got Antonio coming here. I want to get to this one real quick. It was a comment I was just thinking about discussing this episode, but I chose nonviolence this morning because I'm coming off seeing my grandparents yesterday, and I'm just trying to be have a little bit of levity to the conversation and have fun with it because Broncos country has been in a dark place. But Antonio Jones coming in here saying Locke needs to start these last 3 games. If it doesn't work out, then I'm okay with that. Do you think is Locke going to play these last 3 games? Obviously, let's just assume he's playing the Raiders game. But is he going to play these last 3 games?
I think so.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. We'll see. I want him to. I don't want Teddy to play anymore.
For Teddy's sake.
Let's forget the competitive reasons, the play on the field reasons.
Yep.
Teddy's had his egg scrambled twice, and he went down limp and out cold on this last one with 3 games left on a 7-7 team. I don't want him to play again.
Yeah, for me,
for his sake.
I agree with you 100%, especially because, I was coming out of that hit when they were talking about it. I'm like, God, I hope he can walk again because I thought it was a neck injury. The way his head hit, I thought it was
like I said, he went down face first.
I thought it was a compressed spine.
It wasn't, a lot of times you'll see the back of their heads hit the ground on sacks or a knee comes in and hits him in the side of the head. But this was, he went down
accordion neck. Yeah.
He went down, we called them the old sailor dives, diving with your arms at your side into the pool. It was scary. It was scary. I don't want to play again. I do not want him to play again. I can't said it 5 times in a row now. That's how I feel about it.
Yep. I agree with you. It's scary for me. I do think that if the Broncos win this week in spite of Drew Lock rather than because of him, there'll be the concussion evaluation, and with the Broncos potentially having a chance to make the playoffs, I think they have a 96% chance of making the playoffs if they win these next 3 games. So they don't control their own destiny, but that's pretty good odds. If 96%. So if the Broncos win this week against the Raiders, because the Raiders are falling apart and they're not very good, and they win in spite of Locke, then I could see the staff, being like, okay, Teddy, you passed concussion protocol. Like, do you want to go? And Teddy will say yes. It's not a fair ask, but he will say yes because he's a good soldier in that regard. And then you might see Teddy for the last 2 games. But we'll see what happens there. But 1 game at a time. Drew Lock's going to have to go out there and play well against an absolutely terrible, bad Raiders back seven. Raiders do have the ability to get after the quarterback with their front four, which makes me concerned because Drew Lock under pressure loses his damn mind. And the offensive pass protection has not been very good, but we'll see. He could have one of his games like when he went up against Carolina last year, and everything comes together and it's clean and pretty. And once they get a lead, they can just sit on the ball and lean into the run game. Definitely possible.
It's a small enough sample size where you could get on the season long curve. It's going to go like this, but you might be able to just ride that for 3 games where you get good Drew Lock.
Yep.
And that's good for everybody. That's good for it's good for Drew and his future. It's good for the Broncos in the short term, and it's good for George Paton and the options that he'll have if he wants to move Drew in the offseason.
Yep. Drew Lock just needs to protect the goddamn football. Sorry, I'm cussing. It's driving me insane. And there was a conversation earlier about Jay Cutler versus Drew Lock. Jay Cutler in today's NFL would have to change how he plays because the game has changed. You cannot turn over the ball the way that Cutler did and the way that Drew Lock is right now, because turnovers have dropped by like 100% in the NFL. They've changed a lot, and it's really changed the game. I mean, teams really understand that turnovers are unacceptable, and it puts your defense in a bad spot, and you can't win games turning the ball over. And you'll even live with the less explosive plays if you're not giving the opposing offense plus field position constantly because you're turning the ball over. You just cannot have it. So Drew Lock, don't try to do too much. Just play within the scheme, make the right read, and protect the damn ball. That's the biggest thing. If you can do that, you're going to have a chance to make some money in this league. But if you keep turning the ball over like you have been, you're not even going to be paid as a backup because you can't even have that.
I'm a big baseball fan, and I've used this reference before. Give up your 3 runs in the first and settle down. Is what Bam Eggs is saying here. Let them turn over on the first series, and they'll be fine for the rest of the games. Like, get it out of the way. Get shelled the first inning, and then throw a shutout, and then finish 7 innings, 3 runs.
That goes against what you saw this week, though, Scott. Right when the turnover happened, and then it fell
fell off a cliff after that turnover. He was playing really well, and then it went to trying to force things a little too much and trying to make up for it, and it went bad. So he needs early success. He really does.
Yep, protect the goddamn ball. Period. He needs to have that like written.
You have to make me change my rating on YouTube for the ads on here. Is there cussing? Yes, lots.
Yeah, it's just I don't even know. Like if I was coaching middle school for that zone read where he made the wrong read, like that's a middle school read. It really is. Teams are running that in middle school. And
they had run that before too on the 3rd down play a few plays earlier, and you give it to the running back. You got 2 of the best running backs in the game. Give it to the running back. Again, I don't really think you expect, and maybe that's part of it. They don't expect me to do this. I don't expect this defensive end to stay home. You get it in your head, this is what I'm going to do because this is what I've seen. Again, why give him that option then? I don't know. We could go back and forth on that one forever.
It makes sense from a numbers game, but like if you can't trust Drew Lock to make the right read on a zone read where he's reading one player, I don't even know what you can trust him to run. Like that is legitimately, that's a middle school read. That teams implement that in middle school. You read the defensive end. If he stays home, you give it to the running back. If he crashes, you pull out. And it was obvious. Trying to do too much. Do less, Lock. Do less. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. We love you. You can find Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy, and I am at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at Huddle Up Pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. If you guys are on Facebook, make sure you're joining our communities there at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, as well as facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you guys are listening after the fact or you have an iTunes account just in general, make sure you head there, find Huddle Up Podcast. Go down there, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Say Nick sent me. He would not stop bothering me until I left this review. So that's leave me alone.
Stalking me on Twitter. Stop it, Nick.
Harassment. Got to leave me alone. But yeah, head there, leave a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. If you guys have a YouTube or you're watching us on YouTube, you came across us on YouTube, make sure you head on over there. Make an account first of all. Head on over to Huddle Up Pod, Mile High Huddle. Subscribe to us there. Hit that bell notification so you know when we go live. Nick's 21 Xmas card is win the protect the goddamn ball. I mean, I cannot emphasize how important that is for a football game. You just cannot have it in today's NFL. It's crazy how much that's correlated to winning.
I'm interrupting your reads, but I'm having fun with you guys. You guys are great. This is so much fun in the mornings. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, and you guys gotta make sure you're hitting us up on Twitter as well. Show me your festive gear. I'm rocking the not so ugly Broncos Christmas sweater and the hat because I left my Huddle Up gear at home. So
I only asked for one thing, so I better get it. My Broncos for breakfast beanie. That's the only thing I asked for. I'm old. What do I get that isn't like What do you want that isn't, hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Reminds
Okay,
me of
I'll
the
take the
SNL skit
mug.
last year.
But I
Dad
do want
got
a
a
beanie.
Hummer.
I'm getting a beanie for Christmas, so you will see me rocking the Broncos for breakfast beanie before too long.
Well, good. And make sure you guys are also seeing Scott rock on his channel over at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy, where we will be going live tomorrow to talk draft, the Falcons, NFL in general, on his channel. What time is that at, Scott?
We'll go at 10
It's
a.m. Eastern tomorrow
10 a.m.
morning. And Ethan comes in and says, "Congrats, Scott, on getting the 1,000 subscribers. Appreciate you. I couldn't have done it without this community, and it means so much. I mean, I'm going to go down to Senior Bowl. I'm trying to talk Nick into going with me. And I shoot a bunch of highlights and stuff. And draft weekend alone, if my channel had been monetized during the draft, that weekend alone, I would have made about $1,500 on my Senior Bowl videos. That's a big deal. So, like I said, that's life changing. What this can do for me, and what I can do to help provide more content and have more fun with this group. And I couldn't have done it without you. I can't thank you enough.
Yep. I agree. 100%. Hopefully we'll go down there. I have 3 weddings to go to this year. So that makes my vacation days a little sparse, but especially because I'm in every single one of the weddings, which means it's not just the wedding, it's all the things surrounding them. But we'll see. I got to get down to the Senior Bowl at some point. That seems even more fun than the NFL Combine. So we appreciate you guys. We're going to see you out there. Broncos for breakfast peacoats coming up next. That'd be great.
And Richie says Broncos for breakfast reading glasses.
There we go. And we also have the beanies are in the store, so make sure you check that out, EJ. They're there. So we'll see you guys tomorrow morning on Scott's channel. I'll see you guys tonight for Broncos for breakfast. Everyone stay safe, be smart, choose kindness, choose compassion. Go Broncos.